HM moves suck, both competitively and in-game. No one wants to give their Pokemon HM moves. That's why we have HM slaves. But maybe we judge HM moves a little bit too harshly. So today we'll be doing a tier list. This tier list is how good they are in regards to each other. So a move that might be an F in one sense might be a C here because we're rating them in comparison to each other. So starting out with the best move on here, Defog. Introduced in Generation 4, it basically disperses mist and fog to make it easier to see. And if I'm being honest, I don't remember a single time where I used this in-game. I completely forgot it was an HM move, but it's definitely the best one in-game competitively. Even if it was introduced in Generation 4, it got one of the biggest buffs of all time in Generation 6, where it removes hazards on both sides of the field. Previous to that, it didn't have any effect. The reason it was so huge was because Rapid Spin was the only viable way to do this. It gives ghost types way too much power because Rapid Spin is a normal type move. Pokemon like Gengar specifically had bulky variants, and one of the main reasons was that it would be a reliable spin blocker who could switch in and out, and even today Defog is still one of the best ways to remove hazards, which to be fair there aren't that many. Defog gives Pokemon a whole nother niche, especially flying types, because it's a flying type move and flying types primarily have it. Inadvertently it even buffed the flying type, and only cemented Pokemon like Skarmory, as who were already really great, as even more amazing Pokemon. Not only is it the most important and impressive among all of the HM moves, but also one of the most influential moves of all time, and a contender for the best move that got buffed, just in general, at the very least in the later games. So straight to S tier. Next is Surf. Probably the most fun HM to use. Offensive water type moves are really great, and while Surf isn't one of the most common moves nowadays, in the older gens, Surf was actually far more common. For example, Suicune used Surf as the stat moves for 4 generations straight. Swampert often used it in Generation 3, and Empoleon used it in Gen 4 and 5, and Kyogre used it from Generation 3 to Generation 5. This move had a solid base power, but what had it over other water type moves, who at the time was most notably Hydro Pump, its main competition. Its 80% accuracy versus 100% accuracy, it's huge. This move was emblematic of bulky water type Pokemon, and while I had been talking about water types, even the Lottie twins were known to run it. In Generation 4, Latios would run Surf for Pokemon like Tyranitar, Heatran, and to hit the steel types of the tier for neutral damage. I'm talking about Jirachi, Bronzong, or Metagross. In the next generation, Rain was very popular as Politoed gained the ability Drizzle. And that means that Surf became boosted by Rain. So it's going to A, because like I said, it's nothing to scoff at. It has a really impressive resume, but it did fall out of favor because of the introduction of Scald, who, while has lower base power, has 100% accuracy and a very impressive side effect. Speaking of offensive water type moves, our next one brings us to Waterfall. Waterfall on the surface is a fantastic move. Perfect accuracy, good side effects, and decent base power. Also good power points. One of the first instances of Pokemon running it was Gyarados in Generation 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and even now, honestly. It's his go-to move. I would qualify Gyarados as probably the most iconic Waterfall user of all time. But besides him, another bulky water was also very familiar with this move. I'm talking about Swampert. After the physical special split, Swampert stopped using Surf and adopted that move for pretty much every single generation until now, with the exception of Liquidation. See, that's the thing. While Waterfall is a good move, most people prefer Liquidation over it. The reason being that while flinching is very good, lowering an opponent's defense is arguably better if you're going to be spamming it. That means that your opponent is going to be forced to switch out to get rid of that stat drop. Beyond that, Kingdra also used Waterfall in the early gens as Gen 4, as well as Mega Sharpedo using it as well. The reason that I'm not ranking it higher, like I said, is because it got outclassed. But besides that, it was overall a very good HM move, so A. Also, you should subscribe if you also hate Meganium's new Mega. Next, we have our third water type move, Whirlpool. This is a much rarer HM move, as it was mainly used in Generation 2 games to cross Whirlpools. I don't remember using this one time. Otherwise, you don't really need it. In competitive singles, the most common or best Whirlpool user was probably Tapu Fini. She is already a great Pokemon with good bulk and a great defensive and offensive typing. Whirlpool was used to trap your opponents and then whittle them down with Nature's Madness. After you have your HP by that point, you can just use Moonblast. It was very easy to break down because she has good offensive stats. The only other Pokemon who used it, however, was another Water Fairy type, Primarina, especially in its debut generation of Generation 7. Whirlpool was great for catching threats off guard and whittling them down. with a combination of, again, Moonblast, Surf, or Psychic Noise. However, there aren't many instances we can point out in competitive Pokemon history of Whirlpool being used besides that. And why is that? Well, its main function is to break down Stall. See, Stall Pokemon rely on doing passive damage to you, so sometimes they often don't even run attacking moves. This makes it very easy for Whirlpool to take advantage of them, because they can't kill you. Not in that amount of turns. They're playing the long game. But that's the thing, even though it's extremely efficient at that, people don't always run Stall. I would say especially now in Generation 9, it's one of the more rarer ways to play Pokemon, so it's really useless outside of that context. Now this is different for a move like Magma Storm, that yes, traps you, it functions the same, but it can be used as a legitimate attack, as the base power is much higher. So B. Next is Strength. Now we're going into the category of moves that are low-key kind of useless, but there are some slight differences between them. This move was used mainly to move big boulders, and most notably Victory Road. How does it fare? Well, like I said, from this point over, it's moves that no one is going to be using, and Strength is part of that reason. Now, 80 base power. That's fine, okay, power points and 100% accuracy. That seems to hit all the boxes of a potentially good stat move, but Strength is unfortunately a normal type move, which is worst offensive typing of all time to date. If you were looking to use a normal type move pre-Gen 9, particularly you would use Return or Frustration, for the main reasons that it's just higher power, and Frustrator being used mainly on Lapuni, who was great, but not because of the normal typing himself, but because of her ability Scrappy, allowing her to hit ghost types. Besides that, Body Slam has also been historically a far better move than Strength, because of that 30 chance of paralysing. In combination with the fact that that move was commonly used in Generation 1 and 2 by Tauros and Snorlax, as well as a Dunsparce or Jirachi because of their access to Serene Grace, Strength has never had a reason to actually be used. I don't think I've ever seen Strength be run on a Pokemon. Please correct me if I'm wrong though. So I'll rank it a C, because in theory, it can be usable, but in practice, I don't see why you would really want to try that. So Rock Climb is in a very similar situation for Strength. It is a normal type move, which I'll be honest, I thought it was a rock type move, or at the very least a fighting type move. I feel like it's a very common thing with HM moves, that they don't have congruent types, but anyways, it's a normal type move. And honestly, being a normal type attack automatically nerfs you. And it's a little bit different though, because it does have a secondary effect that works as well. It has a 20% chance to flinch. That's not bad, but I don't think it helps at all. Because of that, it's going in the D tier. It had one good aspect that really wasn't that good, and its base power is honestly too low to be interesting enough to use. Next is Dig. Well, Dig, Dive, and Fly, which I will be lumping them in together because they're pretty much the same. They were two pretty cool moves to use, and we will not be beating around the bush. They were pretty terrible moves though. Like I mentioned with the others, on paper it looks good. Good ground, water, and flying are relatively good typings. However, their side effects is what brings from a potentially A tier to a D. I talked about this in a previous video, but a move that takes 2 turns to work is useless unless you use a Power Herb. Pretty much no matter the type, accuracy, or power, it's way too easy to protect. If you use Dive, you can switch out to a physically defensive Pokemon, like say a Dondozo with the Rocky Helmet, or a bulky grass type like a Tangrowth. This is even worse if you use Dig, because you can switch out to a flying type, and Fly is the exact same thing, with the added bonus of it just being a little bit stronger. But ultimately the result is the same, as it is just way too predictable. A higher base power won't be doing you any favors here, if you can switch into a perfect counter. And nobody's going to use a Power Herb on it like they do with Geomancy or Meteor Beam, because it's just not impressive enough of a move. It's very inefficient, and because of that, it goes in E. The concept of this move literally does not make sense when you consider the fact that Pokemon is a strategy, turn-based move. It's like if you told your opponent the move you're going to use in chat before you use it. Next is Rock Smash. There's not a lot to say about Rock Smash. It has side effects that is objectively really cool, and it should be explored more in other moves. However, it's balanced out by the fact that this is a very low base power, and there's just not much of a situation where you would need to use it. Typing wise, this is not a bad type. I talked about how I would fix Rock Smash though, and I talked about that for a reason. It sucks. It brings nothing to the table. No positive attributes. Next is Cut. Now that's the same thing I said for Rock Slide and Rock Smash. You cannot use it. The only reason I'm ranking Cut lower is because the base power itself is just much lower. If you needed to choose one, then use Rock Smash or Rock Climb over Cut, but either way you're cooked. It's a terrible move, E. But last and not least, the worst HM move of all time is Flash. Flash lowers your accuracy, that's it. And it's not a reliable move in Generation 9 because it's not available. Furthermore, even when it is, it goes into the F tier because it's not allowed. It's an illegal move because lowering your opponent's accuracy is non-competitive. So F, you can't use it. This was my tier list of HM moves. I don't think I missed any, but it is possible, so please let me know. And let me know if you disagree with me. Go ahead and tell me your thoughts. Thank you.